Happy Friday and happy Fridays with Fidelman. I'm Cheryl Fidelman, life coach, trauma healer, and writer. And I focus on codependence in my trauma healing practice because I believe that codependence is the most obvious way in which we demonstrate our unhealed trauma in relationship with others. Today is the second Friday in April 2020. How long has it been? A month, 6 weeks into quarantine, 3 weeks, 4 weeks? I'm not even sure how much time it's been. But interesting times, and I am churning out as much content as I possibly can during this time because I want to keep the healing vibes up, the creative, the transformative vibes. I want to keep that energy going. I stand for healing no matter what the paradigm or context or global show that's happening. Today's topic on Fridays with Fidelman is sexual sovereignty. And what I mean by sexual sovereignty, for one thing, it's distinct from celibacy, which I'm going to cover next week or the week after. And it's distinct from celibacy, which would be some level of abstinence. Sexual sovereignty is having a relationship with yourself as a sexual being and a relationship with another person, sexual relationship with another person, where there's actually nothing you need from them, right? So in the Facebook group, which there's a link to the Facebook group, the Trust Yourself Facebook group in the description of this video, I'm doing masterclasses every week. I'll be doing my 5th masterclass. It's free and live, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 12 noon Pacific. If you can't make it, the recordings are in the timeline. And I did the first masterclass, Trauma to Truth masterclass, was on codependence, and then it was on socializing, and then I did one on procrastination and independence and sovereignty. So my view on sovereignty is a lack of codependence, which is the want to be wanted, the need to be needed, the need to prove oneself. So you are an independent being needing nothing from another person. Needs are distinct from wants and desires. In codependence, they all get jumbled, right? We have our wants and desires, but they occur as needs in codependence. So in sexual sovereignty, we relate to another person with our libido, with our sex drive, with our wants and desires, needing nothing. Not needing approval, not needing to be needed, not needing to be wanted. So it's being a sexual being and being in a sexual relationship sans codependence. And I'm including romantic relationships, a lover, a partner, you're dating or you're married. But I'm also including, also flirting, right? Like when there's a trigger of attraction, we feel attracted, we feel turned on. There's many reasons why we would feel turned on. For some of us, it's because we find sort of the puzzle piece in our trauma, right? So for those of us who are codependent, who like to serve and people please, we find somebody that is really good at receiving people pleasing. Sometimes they would be in the category of a narcissist or a narcissistic-like person. So we go, our nervous system kicks in the chemistry and the attraction and goes, oh, I can survive that dynamic. And it masks itself as chemistry. And then you have all this like amazing, sexual chemistry, and it can elude you and distort your view on the relationship if you have a deep sexual connection, but that connection and that chemistry and that flow is not available outside of the bedroom in the psychological and emotional connection as well. So that's a little bit of a digression because I went over all of that stuff, chemistry and sex, in my sex and codependence video that I put out last year. That I'm going to include the link below this video because I think this video, sexual sovereignty and the codependence and sex video go really well together. So going back to when I was mentioning flirting, when chemistry kicks in, what are the lies and the acts that we play, that we tell ourselves, and that we become imposters on some level, right? We think that I need this thing from this person, whether it's some sort of affirmation that you're attractive, or some sort of admiration or attention. So in order to receive that connection or attention from the person that we're attracted to, we will reorganize, manipulate ourselves, our being, our personality, and who we're occurring as and showing up as, in order to receive in that moment the type of attention that we think we need from that person. And it's not a need. And in sexual sovereignty, that is not a need. You can sit in your turn on, your attraction, and actually have it be something that lights up your relationship with yourself. It can make you happy. It can make you curious. It can put you in a playful mood. And those are all to enjoy being inside of yourself, in the experience of yourself. It's not in order to seduce and conquer, right? So then we move on from flirting and that whole realm into being in a relationship with somebody, and I want to cover people in relationship. I want to cover people who are not in relationship, who are avoiding having sex. Avoidance of sex, although it may occur as if they're, some people are in a healthy way avoiding sexual or in a healthy way taking space from sexual interactions. That would be more in the celibacy realm that I'll talk about I think next week. I'm almost positive I'm going to cover that next week. But then there are people who don't want to go into the sexual realm because the level to which they get screwed up and the whole thing gets screwed up once sex happens. It's because things start occurring as needs. And the interesting thing is, especially with sexual needs, it'll disguise itself as sexual needs, and then we'll put that need on another person and think that person has to satisfy that need. And then all of a sudden they're put into a role of satisfying some sexual or sensual need when we don't even know if they have what it takes to handle a sexual connection psychologically and emotionally. Sexual turn-on can have us completely ignore ourselves. So to have sexual turn-on and be in full relationship with ourselves, and also in a romantic relationship or in a partnership or in a marriage, sex can run the show on so many different levels. Even if there's a relationship where there's a lot of sex or there isn't a lot of sex. First of all, it's so taboo that people will not have a regular healthy amount of sex and not talk about it. It's not discussed. And I think that one of the reasons why it's not discussed is because we don't want to put our needs on other people because we think it's a need. If it's actually a want or desire that we have, that we actually don't need anything, we don't need them to satisfy that want or desire, but we have the freedom to express that want or desire, then I think that it would occur as something that is possibly more in the realm of communication. In the act of sex itself, sexual intercourse or fooling around, how much of your sex life with your partner is connected to validation? How much is it connected to maybe your own Maybe you have a need to be sexually satisfied on some level, and it's occurring to you in the moment like it's a need. That's the other thing about sexual turn on and libido, is that for some of us at times it tells us, I need you. I need sexual satisfaction. I need that kind of primal experience. Which I would say is it's often tricking you. 9 times out of 10, that primal experience isn't a need. That sexual primal experience isn't actually a real need. Okay, it's not like air, food, and water. It may disguise itself as a desire for connection. It may disguise itself as a desire to feel like you have won and conquered something, like you are now back in the realm of feeling attractive and feeling wanted and feeling desired, or you're back in the realm of feeling dominant, or you're back in the realm of feeling submissive because you're dominant in your life and you'd prefer to have an experience that puts you in your submissive. So sexual desire can disguise itself as need when there's potentially other more important things underneath that need that would probably satisfy you and be a lot more healthier for you in the moment. And sometimes it's a release of anxiety. Sometimes there's an intimacy that's desired, and when you're fooling around or you're having sex and you're intimate because the bodies are close, is it actually emotionally intimate? Maybe the answer is yes, maybe the answer is no. So when one is craving some sort of soul connection or intimacy or care, that would feel sometimes as more of a vulnerable ask or a vulnerable request. When very often, not all the time, not in every situation, but very often both people are actually craving or wanting that same more vulnerable kind of connection. And here's where safety comes in, right? So we might not want to be more vulnerable, ask for the thing that we're actually really looking for, because if it is denied in some way, we're more likely to feel unsafe. So we'll go for the actual sexual act without exposing our true desire, because that feels sometimes more safe and more survivable. Because the more basic need of our nervous system is to feel safe. So if it's going to threaten our experience of feeling safe, then we'll just do the sex instead of doing the vulnerable thing or saying the vulnerable thing. Also, two people, and so when it comes to sexual sovereignty, there becomes a willingness to say the thing that you may really deeply be desired, because you're coming from your own safety. You don't need the other person's reaction, interpretation of what you're saying. You don't need them to necessarily meet you where you want to be met, because you are already met, you're already safe. So when you're in sovereignty, you're free to express the wants and desires, because that is where your most safe place is within yourself, is the safety and freedom to express what you want and what you desire, without the need for the other person to validate it or honor it, without being afraid that I'm not going to say the vulnerable thing because maybe they won't want me if I say the vulnerable thing. Well, in sexual sovereignty, you don't have the want to be wanted. You don't have the need to be needed. You don't have the need to prove yourself. So the more vulnerable desire is more easily acceptable and more easily spoken. Also in sexual sovereignty, there's Nobody's taking one for the team, right? In other words, what I mean is nobody's going to do something they don't want to do if they don't want to do it. And they're not going to go, okay, well, let's just have sex because that's going to make me think that you want me. I wasn't sure if you wanted me. Instead of just going like, do you want me? Like, are you attracted to me? Or when I pissed you off the other day, did that make you not attracted to me? So people have a lack of communication. And so then they'll just have sex because they think the sex will trigger the want again in the relationship. Now, there's some truth to that. I think that having a regular sexual practice with your partner is healthy and it maintains connection, but it doesn't maintain the psychological health of the relationship. And it can disguise itself as if it is. Also, I want to cover body image real quick when it comes to sexual sovereignty. Inside of sexual sovereignty, you are safe within your body. You are romantic within your body. You feel your senses. You're aware of your senses. You're aware of your inner beauty. You're aware of, what it is that you provide and what it is that you don't provide. And the shame and the guilt of what you desire sexually is not there. So, no matter what your size of shape, like, I used to be a lot skinnier than I am now. Not that I like my body, but I was probably 20 pounds lighter 10 years ago or something like that. So even when I was like, super thin, and I still was contorting my body during sex to look sexy. Like I only wanted to be in like certain positions, and I was sort of just, manipulating the energy and the movements to look sexy, and that is not sexual sovereignty, because I needed somebody else to see me in a particular way in order to feel validated and wanted and pretty much in order to have the experience that I wasn't like a piece of shit having sex, because I always felt like I was a piece of shit. I've shared that a lot about my lack of value through prior to my codependent recovery, and always comparing my body and wondering if I was attractive enough, or in sexual sovereignty, you just are. Your body just is what it is, and it isn't what it isn't, and you are embodying your body. There's full acceptance of your body, that you are human, and that intimacy and romance and sexuality and your fetishes or maybe abstract desires, and even your sexual traumas that are shading the way in which you relate to your own desire, is all okay. It's all okay. I think that when there isn't sexual sovereignty, sometimes it feels like there's a need to occur, like we're totally sexually healthy. And that we'll do whatever, and I'm talking about masculine, I'm talking about feminine, I'm talking about whatever gender it is that you identify with. I'm talking about non-binary, I'm talking about, any being, as we all have masculine and feminine energy. I want to make sure I'm inclusive of everybody as the best of my ability in this talk. Sexual sovereignty doesn't mean you're completely sexually healthy and cured of all your past sexual traumas. It just means you're well aware of what is working for you and what is not working for you, and you're not going to occur as if something's working for you when it's not. And that's a big thing in sex and codependence, is if something's not working for you sexually, you will ignore it and just do the thing anyway. And then sexual resentments build in relationships, and communication then goes down, things get swept under the rug, and you are recreating your sexual trauma, because one of the reasons why sexual trauma doesn't get healed is because we don't talk about it, right? So then we have more sexual trauma and we don't talk about that, and then what's happening is you're not an adult having sex, okay? You are the age of your youngest sexual trauma having sex. You know, you could be 40 years old, but you're still 15 doing it. Then there's, you know, a whole lot of, there's this whole world around sexual appropriateness. Because we may have whatever your libido is, or however it is that you talk about sex or don't talk about sex, we look to the other person to go, what is their comfort level with this stuff? And I'll just work within their comfort level. Again, that's sexual codependence. Sexual sovereignty is being able to go, hey, do you think this is appropriate or not? I have like a thought, I have a question, I have a curiosity, I have something that's bothering me, I have something that's that I'm repressing. Is this appropriate? How does this feel for you to talk about it? So there's actual curiosity in sovereignty, and not an immediate assumption that the other person can't handle the conversation or it's going to hurt their feelings. Okay, so there's a question I want to throw into this video, which is, I'm noticing in my statistics on YouTube that there's a lot of people who don't watch the whole video, if I'm reading the statistics right. So maybe it's because I'm talking for too long. So please, if you're available and open to it, leave a note in the comments and be like, Cheryl, yeah, cut your videos in half, or like talk for 10 minutes instead of 20 minutes. I'd like to sort of take a poll on that if I'm just like talking for too long. So I think that's everything that I want to say about sexual sovereignty. Not to say that getting to a sexually sovereign place is easy, because some of our deepest wounds are sexual. You know, once we've crossed over when we're children into the world of sex. In other words, some of us were molested, or we had some weird sexual experience, or we taken advantage of at a young age, or nobody talked about it, right? And so there's this threshold when we're children, when like you're a child and you're not aware that the world is a sexual place, right? So there's so much more play and freedom and innocence. Then all of a sudden something happens and you go, oh, this is a sexual world. I didn't know that before. And then we start to develop our voice or lack thereof around our desire. And nobody teaches us this, right? Like you go through puberty, all your hormones are raging and nobody says anything. They just go, hey, puberty, high five, good luck, figure it out. And so some of us are figuring it out still when we're 40, 50, 60, 70 years old. So I think it's really, really important to start to distinguish what is a need and what is a desire, and how much am I depending on somebody else's psychology to tell me how I'm going to move through my sex life. How much am I avoiding communicating? How much am I avoiding looking at how my sexual trauma or sexual history has impacted my relationship to sex in the current moment? Because for a lot of people, sex isn't just like, okay, great, let's just have sex, right? There's a lot of stuff within our bodies there's cellular memory. There's also memory that is held in a particular different way in our sexual organs. There's a lot of autopilot, right? Like you have one partner and then there's another body with you and you just kind of do the same paint by numbers moves than with the previous partner. And oftentimes that happens because when there's high sexual turn on, we're more connected to our own libido than the other person. Like we forget that there's actually somebody else on the other end of what we're doing because we move into need. We move into codependence. We move into codependence oftentimes when the turn on is triggered. So I think that those are all my thoughts. Now, the reason why I'm bringing up sex and sovereignty, and please watch the sex and codependence video that's in the description here, is because I'm doing my 5th masterclass in the Facebook group on Monday. They're Trauma to Truth masterclasses. This is going to be the 5th one. Participation has been great. People are getting so much out of it. I'm so grateful. I'm committed to doing masterclasses every week during this quarantine and just churning out free content. So the masterclass on Monday is on sex and celibacy. And I'll be including these thoughts on sexual sovereignty. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Happy Friday. You are awesome. Happy healing. And, you know, I'm a champion for sovereignty. I want to bring as many people as possible into a state of sovereignty, where one is safe within oneself and needs for nothing, and is connected to their wants and desires, and feels safe to communicate their wants and desires without fear of being abandoned. Sovereignty in all areas, not just sex. All right, guys. Thanks for listening to my thoughts and ideas. Happy Friday. Have a great weekend. Stay safe. Enjoy your people. I love you. Happy healing. Bye-bye. One more thought. I might have touched on this, but, you know, how many times have you been in a relationship? I have, definitely, where you may lie or you may not be fully truthful about something that bothers you because you want to keep the sex going. So you'll try to keep the peace on some level because you want to keep the sex going. And I think some of it is disguised as keeping the sex going. You actually want to keep your own want to be wanted going. I want to make sure they want me. So I'm going to sweep a whole bunch of things under the rug ongoingly because I just want to keep having the option of, number one, having sex, and also, number two, knowing that I'm wanted and desired. Okay, just another quick thought. Thanks, guys. Bye.